right, there are a couple ways to create a drag and drop onto text question. And I'm here in my question bank right now because that's my usual workflow. I usually create my questions in the question bank, and then later on I can add them to a quiz from the question bank. So we'll start here, and I'll show you the two options. One of the options is drag and drop into text. And the other one is gap fill. This one is a little bit more versatile, but it has some drawbacks to it, as does this one. So let's start with a drag and drop into text question. And that's good for if you want to have a statement or multiple statements where the students are dragging in the missing word and things like that. And it gives them a question or a word bank up at the top that they're dragging from. And so we'll just give it a name here. Call it drag into text. And the question text is what we're going to use to set the blanks and things like that. Now, if you scroll up here, there's a little question mark that will remind you of the notation that you need to use. So if you click on it, you notice that you're going to drag and drop into text questions that require the respondent to drag the words or phrases into the correct gaps in the question text. So it's a double square bracket, 1, 2, and 3, and so on. Okay, so we can start by just adding a statement, and you can space out the statements however you want. If you want to put it in paragraph form or in list form, you can do that. So let's just say the sky is double square brackets and then close double square brackets. And then we're going to use a number 2 here for the second statement. And then we'll use a number 3 for the third one. So we have 3 statements there, which means I need 3 responses down below. So if I go down to choices, first of all, I want to make sure I'm going to put these in the right order, obviously. So I want to make sure that these are shuffled. And if you remember, my first one is going to be the sky is, and we're going to say that the sky is blue. Okay. The second one, water is. So choice 2 is going to be clear, since water's clear most of the time. And then grass is green. Okay. Now, off to the right, you have these little check boxes that say unlimited. And what that does is it makes the word kind of stay in the word bank once you drag it. Whereas if you don't check this box, as soon as you drag the word into a blank, the word is eliminated from the word bank, as I'll show you in just a second. Okay, so we'll go down here. We'll save changes. And when we go to preview the question by clicking on the magnifying glass here, we see the words down below. I think I may have mentioned that they were at the top. They're actually below in this question type. So, and they just happen to be in the right order. So let me see if I can start a new preview of this question. Let's see if they'll actually shuffle. So I'm going to start another preview. Okay, see that they're shuffled now. So I can click and drag these in, and you notice the word is gone once I drag the word out of there. Okay, so there are a couple things that you want to know about this question. I mentioned the unlimited box, so let's go back into that. I'm going to edit the question again. And we can also add distractors. So let's say I'm going to mark all of these unlimited, so you can see how that behaves then. And then I'm going to add maybe another couple colors there, so they can act as distractors for the correct answers. And we'll mark those as unlimited also. So we'll save our changes. And when we go to look at the question, preview it. And now you'll notice that, again, the answers are going to be shuffled. But when I go to drag one of the answers, it leaves the answer behind. Okay, so let me get a couple of these wrong. Okay, so that's how a drag and drop into text question works. The other drag and drop type question is called the gap fill question. And that, as I mentioned, is a little bit more versatile, but when you go to drag the items, the only option you have is for them to be unlimited. So it doesn't actually eliminate the word from the list when you add it to one of the blanks. So let's use gap fill. And I'll show you how you can make this into a couple different kinds of questions. So let's call this drag. Actually, we'll call it gap fill. Okay, and I'll use the same statements again, but this time, if you notice when we click on the question mark, we're using single square brackets. Okay, so the sky is, and we're actually going to put the correct answer into the brackets. So the sky is blue. Water is clear. And grass is green. And again, you can make these statements a list, or you can put them in paragraph form. It gets a little bit distorted when you try to put all these things in paragraph form. You can change a little bit of the gap settings. Actually, you're going to do that a little bit further down, which is under more options. If you don't like the square brackets, you can choose to set the gaps with some of these other symbols if you want. I'm not sure why you would want to do that, but you can. You may need to use that anytime you have square brackets as part of the text of a question or something like that. So you might want to use a different marker for the answer. By default, this question type is set as a drag and drop question, but you can also set it to gap fill or as drop down. So I'll show you each one of those. One thing you do want to definitely do, and it's not going to make too much of a difference with this example, but every once in a while you have vocabulary words that kids are dragging into a blank, and one word might be 3 letters long and another word might be 12. Well, if you don't check this box, then the word that is 3 letters long, or the blank for that word, is going to be much shorter than the one that's 12. And so you'll end up with kids just trying to match the sizes of the gaps with the words that are there. So, and then you can add some other features here as well. So let's take a look at this. Notice again, it's drag and drop. So let's preview the question. Again, this is our gap fill question. So I'll preview the question. And this one, you notice that the words are up above. When you click and drag them, notice they stay there. Okay, so water's clear, sky's blue. I check my answers, I get feedback because that's the way I have this preview set up. So that's when a gap fill question is set as a drag and drop. As I mentioned, there are 2 other formats that you can choose. And whatever format you use is going to be that format for the entire question. So you can't mix it up within a question. Gap fill is basically like fill in the blank, where the students have to type the word. And when students need to type the word kind of like a short answer question, they need to spell everything correctly. So if they spell blue incorrectly, they're going to get it wrong, even though they have the right idea. So that's the format called gap fill. Okay. And then the other one is a drop down, which basically gives you a little drop down menu for each gap. So again, we'll go to more options, change it from gap fill to drop down. And here's a preview of the drop-down version. Notice we've got the same phrases, but then we click and there's basically a multiple choice drop-down at the end of the sentence where the blank is. Now, for this or any other types of or formats of this question, you may also want to have some distractors for a gap fill question. So those are going to go in a slightly different spot than they did in the drag and drop into text question. I passed over it down here. There's actually a spot for distractors here. So here's where I can put my additional colors. And we're just going to separate these by commas. Okay? And the way I know that is because when you click on this, the little hint button tells you exactly what to do. So put some distractors in there, save our changes, and then we'll preview one more time, and you'll see that instead of 3 options for the 3 blanks, now we're going to have 5 options for the 3 blanks. So there we go. Now we've got distractors. Okay, so once again, those are 2 ways to use drag and drop: the drag and drop into text and the gap fill question.